She woke up early, as she always did, to the sound of the alarm buzzing softly on her nightstand. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, painting the room with a warm glow. She stretched her arms and let out a deep yawn. Today was like any other day, or so she thought. She went about her morning routine with a quiet sense of purpose, brushing her hair and making herself a simple breakfast. Her husband was still asleep, his breathing steady and calm, a gentle reminder of the peaceful life they had built together. He had always been a man of few words, preferring actions to conversations. There were hints of his past scattered around their home, old photographs, medals tucked away in drawers, and a disciplined air that seemed to follow him everywhere. Yet he rarely spoke about it, and she never pressed. She loved him for who he was in the present, not the past he carried silently. After breakfast, she gathered her things and headed out to run a few errands. The neighborhood was quiet at this hour, the streets almost empty except for the occasional car passing by. She felt comfortable walking around, waving at neighbors she recognized and exchanging smiles with familiar faces. Life had a rhythm here, one that felt safe and predictable. As she walked, she noticed a few young men loitering near a corner store. Their presence made her uneasy, though she tried to dismiss the feeling. They were dressed in casual clothes, but there was a certain roughness in their movements and the way they looked around, as if they were sizing up everyone nearby. She quickened her pace, hoping to reach the safety of the crowded main street. The gang had noticed her too. There was something about her that caught their attention, though she didn't know why. Maybe it was her confidence, the way she carried herself. Or perhaps they simply wanted to assert control over anyone who appeared vulnerable. They began to follow her from a distance, moving in a way that felt deliberate and calculated. She tried to ignore them, telling herself not to be paranoid. Yet the feeling of unease grew stronger with every step. She glanced over her shoulder and saw one of them smirking, making her heart race. She considered turning around or taking a different route, but the streets were narrow, and there was no easy escape without drawing attention. Her mind raced with possible ways to get away, but before she could act, they were close. The first one stepped in front of her, blocking her path. His friends flanked her from either side, cutting off any possible exit. She felt a wave of panic, her instincts screaming at her to run, to fight, to do something. She reached for her phone, hoping to call for help, but one of them knocked it out of her hand. They were bigger than her, and she felt momentarily powerless. She tried to shout, attracting the attention of passers-by, but the street was still quiet, and her voice seemed small against the looming threat of the gang. She took a step back, trying to keep her distance, but they advanced, surrounding her like predators closing in on prey. At that moment, somewhere in the neighborhood, her husband stirred. He had been in a light sleep, his senses always alert despite the calm appearance he maintained. Something in his gut told him something was wrong. He had learned to trust these instincts over years of training and experience, and he didn't ignore them. Without hesitation, he got dressed and stepped outside, scanning the street with sharp eyes. He moved quickly and quietly, his body attuned to every sound, every movement. He could see the group from a distance surrounding his wife. The calm in his face was a stark contrast to the tension in the street. There was no panic, only focused determination. He knew he had to act, but he also knew the importance of strategy and precision. He approached silently, keeping to the shadows, analyzing the situation. Meanwhile, the woman struggled to maintain her composure. She tried to reason with them, speaking firmly yet politely, hoping to appeal to their better nature, though she knew deep down it was unlikely to work. Her mind flashed through memories of her husband's stories, brief mentions of discipline, courage, and resilience. She drew on that inner strength, standing her ground as best as she could. The gang's leader took a step closer, his voice low and threatening. They thought they had the upper hand, unaware of the storm approaching. They underestimated her strength, and above all, the presence of her husband, who had seen far worse in his life, but never lost the calm and focus that defined him. The tension hung thick in the air, a silent battle of wills between fear and courage. Every second felt stretched, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for what would happen next. She felt the fear clawing at her, but also a strange sense of anticipation, a faint hope that help was near, from the shadows. Her husband watched, analyzing every movement, every subtle gesture of the attackers. He noticed the gaps in their formation, the overconfidence in their stance and the nervous glances they exchanged. He planned his approach carefully, knowing that rash action could put his wife in more danger. His training kicked in seamlessly, every muscle and reflex ready for what was about to unfold. Back on the street, the woman realized she couldn't fight them off alone. She felt a surge of desperation, mixed with a fierce determination not to let them break her spirit. She shouted again, louder this time, trying to buy herself time. Her voice echoed through the narrow street, carrying a mix of fear and defiance. The gang hesitated for a moment, distracted by her sudden outburst. That moment was all her husband needed. He stepped forward, moving swiftly and with purpose. The gang finally realized that they were not facing an ordinary man. The calm authority in his eyes, the controlled precision in his movements, and the sudden shift in the air around him made them pause. The woman caught sight of him and felt a wave of relief wash over her. She knew instantly that things were about to change. The presence of someone so capable, someone who radiated strength and control, shifted the balance in her favor. The fear that had gripped her began to loosen, replaced by hope and trust. The street, once filled with tension and the threat of violence, now held the promise of resolution. She stood there, side by side with the man she loved, waiting for the next moments to unfold. She knew he would protect her, that his past had prepared him for this very situation, and that she was safe in his hands. As the gang realized their mistake, the air thickened with anticipation. Their underestimation of him had cost them the advantage. The quiet calm of her husband was more terrifying than any threat they had posed. They were about to learn the hard way that appearances could be deceiving, and that courage and skill could come from the most unexpected places. The street was silent except for the quick, controlled steps of the man as he approached the gang. Their confident smirks faded as they noticed the intensity in his eyes, a quiet warning that this was not someone to be underestimated. He did not shout or make a scene. His calmness alone unsettled them. It was a presence that demanded respect and attention, and for a moment the gang froze, unsure of their next move. She watched from the edge of the confrontation, her heart still racing. Fear had not left her entirely, but now it was tinged with awe and relief. Her husband's composure, the way he measured each movement, gave her courage. It reminded her of the strength she had seen in him over the years, quiet, steady, and always reliable. The gang finally decided to move forward, thinking they could intimidate him with numbers. That was their first mistake. He anticipated their actions, sidestepping one of the men with a swift step to the side, using his momentum to guide the attacker past him rather than meeting force with force. He grabbed the arm of another as he approached, twisting gently but firmly, sending a clear message. He controlled the situation. The gang leader was furious, shouting threats and trying to regain control, but the man remained calm, his breathing steady, his eyes locked on each member of the gang. He didn't need to fight recklessly. Every move was calculated, precise, designed to protect his wife while minimizing harm. The skill and experience he carried from his past were evident in the ease with which he moved. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. The gang, once menacing and confident, now hesitated, unsure how to respond. She noticed the subtle shifts, the nervous glances, the uneasy foot movements, the sudden realization that this encounter was not going as they had planned. Her husband's presence alone had shifted the balance. He spoke, his voice low but commanding, telling them to leave her alone. There was no anger in his words, only authority. It was not a plea or a threat. It was an instruction that carried weight. The gang members looked at each other, sensing the danger but unwilling to admit defeat. They tried to push forward, but each attempt was met with measured, efficient movements that blocked their path or guided them away without escalation. The woman felt a mix of emotions, fear, relief, and admiration. She realized that her husband's restraint was part of what made him formidable. He did not seek to harm unnecessarily, but he was more than capable of defending her. This knowledge made her feel safe in a way she hadn't fully experienced before. The gang's frustration grew, their patience wearing thin. They began to shout, trying to prove. Okay, him, hoping to force a reaction that would put him on the defensive, but he did not bite. He maintained control, using his body language and positioning to assert dominance without striking. It was a masterclass in calm authority, and it left the attackers increasingly unsure. Suddenly, one of them lunged forward, attempting to grab her again. The man reacted instantly, stepping between them with a fluid motion that was both protective and commanding. He held the attacker at arm's length, using leverage and technique to immobilize him without causing serious harm. The move was precise, efficient, and effective, demonstrating skill honed over years of training. The other gang members paused, watching closely, realizing that this confrontation was no longer about intimidation. It was about control, and they were clearly outmatched. Panic began to creep into their expressions. The confidence they had felt moments ago had evaporated, replaced by fear and uncertainty. She felt her body relax slightly, her breathing steadying. Relief washed over her, but she remained alert, aware that the situation was not fully resolved. Her husband's attention never wavered from the gang, his focus absolute. She trusted him completely, knowing that every move he made was calculated to protect her. The man spoke again, this time warning them that if they did not leave, consequences would follow. His tone was calm but firm, and it carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. The gang, now fully aware of their miscalculation, hesitated. They had underestimated both her and her husband, and the realization was dawning on them. One of the attackers made a sudden move to the side, perhaps attempting to flee. The man allowed it, his focus remaining on the immediate threat to his wife. Another attacker tried a reckless action, but he was intercepted swiftly, guided away from her with minimal force. Every action was deliberate, controlled, and efficient, emphasizing the difference between brute aggression and trained skill. The woman's admiration for him grew as she watched the interaction. She saw the patience, the discipline, and the protective instinct in every move. It was not just about strength. It was about intelligence, control, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. She realized that true courage was quiet and measured, not loud or reckless. The gang leader finally seemed to understand the situation. The realization that they were outmatched hit him like a sudden wave. His bravado faltered. His threats lost meaning in the face of someone who clearly had far greater experience and capability. He took a step back, signaling to the others, a silent agreement that continuing was no longer worth the risk. The man didn't chase them or escalate further. He maintained a watchful stance, ensuring that his wife was safe and that the gang had genuinely left the area. His focus never wavered from her well-being. It was a demonstration of both skill and care, showing that his actions were always guided by responsibility, not ego. She felt a profound sense of gratitude and respect. In the span of a few tense minutes, she had witnessed the depth of his strength and the precision of his abilities. It was a moment that revealed his past without needing words, a silent testament to the discipline and courage that defined him. Once the gang had finally dispersed, the tension in the air began to dissipate. The street, which had felt heavy with threat just moments ago, was now quiet once more. She stepped closer to him, seeking comfort and reassurance, and he responded with a gentle but firm presence, a protective shield that extended beyond the physical. They walked home together slowly, each step allowing the adrenaline to fade and the sense of safety to return. She could feel the residual fear lingering, but it was now tempered by confidence in his abilities and the knowledge that they were a team. He held her hand lightly, a simple gesture that reinforced his protective role in their bond. As they approached their home, she reflected on the events that had just unfolded. The experience had been terrifying, yet it had also revealed something important: the power of preparation, skill, and calm determination. It had shown her that courage could manifest in quiet ways, and that love often included protection that was invisible until tested. Inside, they settled into their routine, the normalcy of their home providing comfort after the chaos outside. He spoke to her briefly about staying aware and cautious, emphasizing practical safety rather than dwelling on fear. His calm demeanor helped her regain her sense of balance, reminding her that the danger was now behind them. She looked at him with renewed appreciation. He had protected her not just with strength but with thoughtfulness and care. She understood more than ever the depth of his character and the quiet heroism that had always been part of his life. It was a lesson she would carry with her, a memory that would strengthen her sense of safety and trust. As the day ended, the events of the morning replayed in her mind, not as a story of fear, but as a story of resilience, courage, and the bonds that protect and sustain us. She realized that strength comes in many forms, and sometimes it is hidden until the moment it is truly needed. And in that moment, the man who had stood by her side, had shown that he was more than capable of rising to the challenge, embodying the very essence of protection, skill, and love. After the gang had finally disappeared down the street, the woman felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. Her heart was still racing, her palms sweaty, and her mind replaying every detail of the attack. She clung to her husband's arm, feeling the protective warmth radiate from him. Though the danger had passed, the tension remained, a reminder of how quickly life could change. Her husband's eyes scanned the area one last time, ensuring that no one remained nearby. He moved with calm precision, not a single motion wasted, his presence a shield that had kept her safe. When he turned to her, his expression softened and she could see the concern etched in his face. It was a gentle reminder that despite his experience, he valued her well-being above all else. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the lingering fear. She looked at him with gratitude and wonder, realizing just how much he had done in those few tense minutes. The man she had always admired quietly, whose past had always been a mystery, had revealed his true strength in a way that left no doubt. It was a side of him that was both formidable and reassuring. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. There was no rush, no panic, just the quiet care of someone who had faced danger many times and understood the importance of calm. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think so, thanks to you. I don't know what would have happened without you." Her words trembled, not from fear anymore, but from the intensity of relief and gratitude. He gave her a small, reassuring nod. "You were brave too," he said, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You stayed calm and followed through. That helped me help you." His eyes met hers, and she understood that he saw her courage even in the midst of fear. Together they walked slowly toward home, taking their time. The neighborhood seemed peaceful again, the earlier tension dissolving into the quiet rhythm of the day. Yet both knew that the memory of the event would linger. It was impossible to forget how close danger had been, and how swiftly it could appear in ordinary life. Once inside, she sank onto the couch, letting out a long, tired sigh. The adrenaline that had kept her alert began to fade, leaving her body aching with exhaustion. Her husband sat beside her, careful to give her space while offering comfort. He didn't force words, knowing that sometimes presence alone was enough to heal the shock. She looked at him, curiosity mingling with a newfound respect. "How did you know exactly what to do?" she asked. "You moved so calmly, so confidently. I've never seen anything like it." Her question was genuine, and her eyes reflected the wonder of someone witnessing extraordinary skill in action. He hesitated for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Years of experience teach you to stay calm, to think clearly, and to act with purpose," he said quietly. He didn't go into specifics, but she understood. His past, once a silent part of their life, had prepared him to protect in ways she had only just begun to understand. She nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of his words. There was a profound respect in her gaze, not just for his abilities, but for the restraint and care he had shown. He had proven that strength was not about aggression or anger, but about measured, thoughtful action, guided by the desire to protect rather than to dominate. For the next hour, they sat in quiet reflection. The sounds of the neighborhood drifted through the open window, the occasional car passing, birds chirping in the trees, the distant hum of daily life continuing as if nothing had happened. It was a stark contrast to the intensity of the morning, a reminder of how fragile peace could be. She felt the need to process everything, to put words to the chaos and fear she had experienced. "It's strange," she said softly. "I was terrified, but at the same time I felt a strange kind of calm when you arrived. It's like I knew I was going to be okay." She looked at him, eyes glistening, searching for the right words to capture her feelings. He placed his hand over hers, a simple gesture that conveyed reassurance without the need for speech. "You were never alone," he said. "We faced it together. That's what matters." His words were gentle, yet carried the weight of experience and truth. The woman realized that the incident had changed her perspective. She had always known her husband was capable, but seeing him in action, witnessing the quiet strength and tactical skill he possessed, had revealed a depth she had never fully comprehended. It was both humbling and comforting, a reminder that love could include protection, in ways unseen until tested. As the day moved forward, she began to recount the moments of the attack, each detail bringing back the fear, the panic, and then the relief. She laughed nervously at some points, shaking her head at the absurdity of the situation, and cried quietly at others, overwhelmed by the intensity of her emotions. Her husband listened patiently, never interrupting, offering only occasional words of comfort or acknowledgement. He encouraged her to focus on the lessons rather than the fear. "It's important to remember what you did right," he said. "You stayed aware, you acted when necessary, and you trusted the people around you. That made a difference." She nodded, realizing that his perspective helped her reclaim control over her experience, turning fear into empowerment. As evening approached, the couple shared a quiet meal together. The normalcy of eating, talking about small everyday things, helped ground them. It was a stark contrast to the intensity of the morning, yet the memory of the event lingered, shaping their conversation and thoughts. She realized that life could be unpredictable, but also that resilience and preparedness mattered as much as courage. Later, they stepped outside briefly, walking through the neighborhood to check that the area was calm. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the streets. The world seemed peaceful, but both were keenly aware of the fragility of that peace. They moved slowly, vigilant but not fearful, understanding that caution and awareness were as important as courage and skill. The woman felt a renewed appreciation for her husband's presence, not just as a partner, but as someone who had silently carried strength and experience that had now been revealed in a moment of need. It was a side of him that had always existed, but one she had never fully seen or understood. Now it was impossible to ignore, and she felt gratitude deep in her heart. Inside their home, they prepared for the night. She felt tired but safe, the fear of the morning replaced by a sense of security and trust. She reflected on the lessons learned, the importance of awareness, the value of calm action, and the strength that came from experience and preparation. Her mind replayed the event not as a story of terror, but as a story of resilience, courage, and the deep bond they shared. As she lay in bed that night, she realized that the day had changed her in subtle but profound ways. She had faced fear, witnessed extraordinary skill, and felt the depth of protection that love could provide. The memory would remain, a reminder that strength and courage could appear in quiet, unexpected ways. Her husband lay beside her, calm and composed, a silent guardian whose presence alone provided comfort. She understood that his past had shaped him, prepared him for moments like this, and that his love was intertwined with his ability to protect. It was a bond that went beyond words, a connection forged in trust, care, and shared experience. Sleep came slowly as her mind processed the day's events. Fear, relief, gratitude, and admiration mingled in her thoughts, creating a complex but ultimately comforting tapestry of emotion. She knew that life could be unpredictable, that danger could appear when least expected, but she also knew that with him by her side, she was never truly alone. The morning would come again, bringing with it the ordinary rhythm of life. But the memory of the day, the lessons learned, and the revelation of her husband's strength would remain. It was a story of courage and love, of fear transformed into trust, and of ordinary life intersecting with extraordinary skill in a way that changed everything. The next day dawned calm and quiet, but the memory of the previous morning lingered in the woman's mind like a shadow. She went about her routine, making breakfast and tidying the house, yet every sound outside drew her attention. She could not shake the memory of the fear, the aggression, and the sudden relief that had come with her husband's arrival. Her mind replayed the events over and over, analyzing every detail and reliving the emotions. Her husband watched her carefully, understanding without words that she needed reassurance and space to process. He did not force conversation but stayed near, his presence a silent support. He had learned long ago that people recover from trauma at their own pace, and that patience could be more valuable than words or explanations. Outside, the neighborhood began to stir. People were talking about the incident, whispers spreading quickly about what had happened. Some admired the courage of the woman, while others were amazed by the man who had intervened. There were no exaggerations, only the natural curiosity and concern of a community responding to a sudden threat. The couple did not seek attention, but the story of their experience naturally became a topic of conversation among neighbors. The woman felt a mix of emotions as she listened to the recounting of the morning. She was proud, yet embarrassed by the attention. She had faced fear, yes, but she had also been protected by someone she loved deeply. That protection, while comforting, also reminded her of how vulnerable life could be. She had learned a new perspective on courage and resilience, both in herself and in her husband. Her husband suggested a walk through the neighborhood to see the reactions firsthand. They moved slowly, noticing subtle changes in the way people looked at them. There was respect, yes, but also curiosity. The experience had made the couple more visible in ways they had never imagined. Yet he remained focused on ensuring they moved safely and without unnecessary confrontation, teaching her once again that vigilance did not have to come with fear. As they walked, a few neighbors approached cautiously. They expressed concern and gratitude, asking if the woman was truly okay. She smiled, offering reassurance, though inside she still felt the echo of fear. Her husband quietly acknowledged the neighbors, offering calm and composed responses. He was always careful to not exaggerate or intimidate, using only honesty and measured words to communicate. The conversation with neighbors revealed how little control anyone truly has over sudden danger. People shared their own small experiences with crime and fear, building a network of shared understanding. The woman listened, realizing that the experience had connected her to the community in unexpected ways. She understood that vulnerability was part of life, but that courage and support were equally present if one knew where to look. Returning home, the couple began discussing practical steps to ensure safety without living in fear. They reviewed routines, talked about awareness, and considered small changes to their daily life to prevent future incidents. It was not about paranoia, it was about preparation and resilience. She realized that safety was a balance between trust in her own abilities, reliance on others, and thoughtful planning. Her husband shared small tips and strategies, not in a way that was instructive or patronizing, but in a way that empowered her. He emphasized situational awareness, quick thinking, and the importance of staying calm under pressure. Each suggestion was simple, practical, and grounded in experience, making it easy for her to absorb and integrate into her daily life. Later, in the day, they received a visit from a community officer who wanted to understand the incident. The woman spoke carefully, recounting what had happened while focusing on facts rather than emotion. Her husband supported her silently, ready to provide any necessary detail. The officer listened intently, taking notes, and offered reassurance about neighborhood safety and ongoing monitoring. It was a reminder that while individuals could prepare and protect themselves, community support and collaboration were equally important. The woman reflected on how quickly ordinary life could change. One moment she had been walking through a quiet street, and the next she faced a threat that tested every instinct and decision she had ever made. Yet she also realized that ordinary life contained extraordinary resilience, courage, and bonds of support. Her husband's presence had transformed fear into action, danger into control. That evening, they sat together on their porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The colors of the sky seemed to carry a sense of calm and renewal. They talked quietly about the day, about the reactions of neighbors, and about the lessons learned. There was a shared understanding that while the past could not be changed, the future could be influenced by preparedness, awareness, and mutual support. She felt a renewed sense of trust in herself and in her husband. The experience had revealed hidden strengths, not just in him but also in herself. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. She had witnessed that firsthand and now carried that understanding within her. The husband remained quiet for long stretches, simply listening, observing, and offering subtle guidance when necessary. His restraint and patience were lessons in themselves, showing that true strength often manifests in calm, measured actions rather than loud or dramatic gestures. She felt gratitude, not just for his protection, but for the example he provided in handling stress, danger, and uncertainty. As night fell, the neighborhood settled into its usual rhythm. Lights flickered on in windows, children played quietly in backyards, and the world moved forward. The couple remained on the porch for a while, sharing the silence, absorbing the calm after the storm. It was a moment of reflection, a moment to internalize the experience and the lessons it offered. The woman thought about how life's unexpected challenges could teach profound truths. The incident with the gang had been frightening, yes, but it had also revealed courage, resilience, and the depth of human connection. She realized that every person carried potential for bravery and protection, sometimes hidden until tested by circumstance. Her husband spoke softly about the importance of community and vigilance. He reminded her that safety was a shared responsibility, that paying attention and caring for others created a stronger, more resilient environment. She listened, appreciating not just the wisdom of his words but the experience that backed them up. It was a reminder that strength was not only individual, but collective, shared among those who watched, cared, and acted when needed. The woman felt a sense of empowerment growing within her. She no longer saw herself solely as a victim of circumstance, but as an active participant in her own safety and well-being. The experience had shown her the value of awareness, preparation, and trust in those she loved. She understood that fear could be transformed into action, and vulnerability could coexist with courage. The night ended with a quiet understanding between them. They had faced danger, experienced fear, and emerged with lessons that would guide their future. The bond between them had deepened, strengthened by shared experience and mutual respect. The world outside could be unpredictable, but together they were resilient, capable, and prepared. As they prepared for sleep, the woman felt a sense of calm she had not expected. The morning's events had been intense, yet she now understood that they had also revealed the extraordinary within the ordinary. She had witnessed courage, skill, and love in action, and that knowledge would remain with her, shaping her perspective and her confidence moving forward. The days following the incident settled into a new rhythm. Life returned to its normal pace, yet the experience lingered in both their minds, shaping their thoughts and actions. The woman moved through her routine with a quiet confidence she had not known before. She carried herself differently, aware of her own resilience and the presence of someone who had her back without question. Her husband remained the same outwardly calm figure, but she noticed subtle shifts in the way he interacted with her. He was even more attentive, watching her closely while giving her space, offering reassurance without overwhelming her. She realized that his actions were not just protective but also thoughtful, showing care for her emotional well-being as much as her physical safety. The neighborhood had begun to change subtly as well. The story of the attack and the intervention had spread quietly, leaving people with a renewed sense of awareness. Neighbors exchanged cautious greetings, smiles carrying more meaning, a silent acknowledgement of the recent events and the resilience of those involved. The couple did not seek recognition, but the respect they received was evident in the way people looked at them and spoke in hushed tones. She noticed children playing with a little more caution in the streets, neighbors locking doors more diligently, and people checking in on each other more frequently. It was a small but meaningful shift, a reminder that the incident had not only affected them, but also brought the community closer together. Awareness had increased, and with it came a shared sense of responsibility for one another's safety. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, the woman reflected on the lessons learned. She thought about fear, courage, and trust. The attack had been a harsh reminder of life's unpredictability, but it had also revealed strengths that were often hidden until needed. She realized that true courage was quiet, measured, and often revealed in moments of calm decision-making rather than dramatic action. Her husband spoke softly, reinforcing these lessons. He emphasized the importance of preparation, awareness, and understanding one's environment. "It's not about being afraid all the time," he said. "It's about knowing what to do when something happens. Being aware and ready doesn't make life worse. It makes it safer." She nodded, appreciating the wisdom in his words. It was a perspective she had never fully considered before. Fear, she understood now, could be transformed into action, into careful planning, and into a sense of control. It was not something to be ignored or suppressed, but something to channel into preparedness. They spent the next few days making small adjustments to their routines. They walked different routes, stayed alert to surroundings, and reviewed safety practices together. These actions were not born of paranoia but of mindfulness, a commitment to their own safety and the understanding that life could change in an instant. The woman felt empowered, no longer feeling like a passive participant in her own life. The husband also encouraged open conversations about feelings and experiences. They discussed the morning of the attack in detail, analyzing reactions and decisions. This helped her process the event more fully and understand her own responses. She realized that talking about fear did not make it stronger. It made it manageable. She learned to trust herself more, to recognize her instincts, and to appreciate the calm presence of someone trained to act when necessary. Neighbors continued to reach out, expressing concern, gratitude, and curiosity. Some shared their own experiences, while others simply offered a kind word or a smile. The woman realized that connection and community played a vital role in resilience. Strength was not only individual but also collective, shared among those who watched, cared, and acted to support one another. In the evenings, they often sat together quietly, reflecting on the events and the subtle changes in their lives. The world seemed different, not worse but more vivid, filled with a mixture of caution and appreciation for the ordinary moments that life offered. Each sunset, each quiet street, each simple meal became more meaningful. They were aware now of the fragility of life but also of its potential for courage, care, and connection. The woman thought about how ordinary life could hide extraordinary strength. She realized that people often carried capabilities within them that were unseen until tested. Her husband's presence had revealed this truth in a very real and impactful way. She felt gratitude not just for his intervention, but for the example he provided of calm, thoughtful courage. Over time, the couple also shared their story with a few trusted friends, not for attention but as a lesson in resilience and preparation. They emphasized awareness, calm decision-making, and the importance of protecting one another. Their story became a quiet teaching moment, inspiring others to consider their own safety without instilling fear. The woman found herself reflecting on her own growth. She had faced fear, experienced vulnerability, and emerged with a deeper understanding of herself and her surroundings. She had learned to trust her instincts, to act with awareness, and to rely on the support of someone who was not only skilled, but also deeply caring. This combination of personal and shared strength gave her a newfound sense of confidence. Her husband continued to lead by example, showing that true protection and strength were not about aggression or dominance but about calm, controlled, and purposeful action. He reinforced the idea that courage could be quiet, that resilience often came from preparation and mindfulness, and that love could be expressed through care, vigilance, and respect. Weeks passed. Life returned to a comforting routine. The streets were quiet, the neighbors respectful, and the couple more connected than ever. They moved with a sense of mindfulness, aware of potential threats but not burdened by fear. Their relationship deepened, strengthened by shared experience, mutual trust, and an understanding that life's unpredictability could be met with courage and care. The woman often thought back to the moment of danger, not with dread but with a sense of clarity. She saw how fear could be transformed into strength, how courage could appear in unexpected ways, and how trust and connection could be a source of protection. She understood that life could be fragile, but it was also resilient, filled with opportunities to act with care and awareness. In private moments, she thanked her husband silently, appreciating not just his physical protection, but the emotional security he provided. His presence, calm and composed, had shown her that strength could be gentle, skillful, and patient. She realized that these qualities combined with love and trust were the true measures of resilience. The neighborhood settled back into its rhythm, the memory of the attack fading but leaving lessons behind. People were more aware, more careful, and more connected. The couple, while not seeking recognition, had influenced their community by example, showing that courage and preparedness could coexist with kindness and composure. One evening, as they watched the sunset together, the woman felt a deep sense of peace. The danger had passed and life had continued, but the experience had changed them both. They had faced fear, acted with courage, and emerged stronger. Their bond was reinforced, their awareness heightened, and their respect for life deepened. She understood now that true safety and strength came from preparation, vigilance, and